Welcome to Leo's Submarine Podcast, a deep dive into the human experience. Today I have a very special guest. His name is Samuel. He is a self-proclaimed witch tarot reader. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. I just want to thank you so much for coming out today and then just dive right into it, right?
Absolutely.
So, what are tarot cards and can you tell me if I'm going to die later?
So, tarot cards are a system of divination. There are multiple different card divination systems. Tarot started in Milan, Italy in the 14th century, and it progressed into what we know now to be tarot. It actually started as a playing card game for affluent Italian women when their husbands went out and about to do whatever they do. So the women would play card games, and so that's where we developed a system known as Lenormand that became tarot.
I did not know that. That is crazy.
Yep.
What interested you into going into tarot?
Honestly, I just fell into it. I actually picked up my first pack of tarot cards and put them away because I was like, I don't connect to them. I'm not seeing anything, not doing anything.
Of course.
But after I got a little bit more serious about my personal practice, reading, witchcraft, the whole nine yards, I was actually reading the cards before I ever knew any prescribed meanings of the cards. Tarot, as I know it to be the Coleman Smith tarot deck, is a 78 card deck, and each card has a specific meaning based on their arrangement. So the King of Cups means this, the Queen of Swords means this, the Four of Wands means this. But I was able to read without even knowing any preconceived notion about what these cards meant. And then I got a little bit more affluent with the system of tarot after I started reading.
Gotcha. And you mentioned all these decks. I think there's, not familiar with how many there are. Do you know how many there are?
There are anything that you could be interested in, there is a tarot deck that is made for it.
Beautiful. Are you able to just pick up a deck and just go for it?
I think it depends. I think it really depends. If you went to a store, you could go to New Age People, the Divine Key. Those are local places. If you pick up a tarot deck and you don't like it, put it down. Try something new. I found my tarot deck because it's based off of what I'm interested in. The images speak to me. That's how I'd say it. So everyone, I guess, could probably have a tarot deck that they would prefer to read with. There are multiple tarot readers that have a collection and they read with every single deck that calls to them in that moment for that particular reading. Myself, I only use one tarot deck for everything because that's just they're my good Judy.
Of course. Do you ever do readings on yourself?
How I was taught is that readers, really good readers, can't read for themselves.
Gotcha.
Only because if I needed to know something, I would already have been told it. The cards can't tell me anything that I don't already know. So tarot readers, people that do this professionally would need to go to somebody else that reads because I am too close to the situation like if I was in a relationship,
of course,
and I was like, how do I fix my relationship problems? I would put my preconceived notions on my situation on what I'm reading. So I wouldn't be able to read it third party. So I would go to somebody else to be like, how is this situation going to happen? And then they would be able to tell me because I don't know what I don't already know.
I see. And you mentioned romance. I'm sure that's one of the biggest questions that you get asked.
Absolutely.
What is the craziest request that you have gotten on a tarot reading?
Honestly, really nothing seems very crazy to me. Because people are coming with legitimate problems. I was actually working for a store, and what they put on there for legality purposes is that tarot readings are for entertainment purposes only. I didn't like that because nobody who I have read is coming because they're like, oh, I just want to see what they say. It's because they are having a legitimate issue that they need resolved, and they don't know how to get any other answers other than coming to someone who is a psychic. And that's how they get their answers. So I've told people that they need to divorce their husband and move to Florida. I've told people that they are seriously ill and that they need to get help. I've told people that you live in an abusive situation and that this is how we're going to handle it, and seeing them cry on the other side of the table after basically telling them all the things that are wrong, they're confirming, oh my gosh, you're absolutely right. But the hard thing is that it doesn't matter how many times I could tell you. I could tell you 10 different ways to Sunday how this situation should be resolved. And until that client wants to resolve those problems, it doesn't matter what I say because it's just, okay, well, thank you for telling me, but then what are you doing after the reading that's going to resolve your issue?
Gotcha. Which leads me to a question that I have, a deep, burning question.
Absolutely.
My question would be, you've given the clients the reading.
Yeah.
How true does the reading become right after you give it to them?
It honestly depends. And I tell people this very frequently, and this is something that I'm not shy about. If I am giving you a reading and I tell you that the best way to go for you is to go left, and you're like, okay, I see left, but I actually want to go right. You are absolutely more than welcome to take a different path than what I have prescribed to you as to be the best option for you.
Gotcha.
But everything in that reading that I have just described to you is now either postponed or completely null and void.
I see.
So, and I give timelines, very specific timelines. This will happen for you in 6 months. This will happen to you in 4 months. This will happen to you next year. But how you act upon that information is going to be how far out that is going on. So if I tell you that you need to move to Florida and this is going to be the best thing for you, and you're like, after this reading, I'm going to go and find houses in Florida and I'm going to pack my house and I'm going to go and all these wonderful things are going to happen to me, great. But if you're like, well, it's really not, I really can't do that right now. I have to do this and this and this and this. Okay, that's fine. But all the things that I'm telling you that are going to happen to you in Florida, which is the best for you, is not going to happen in 2 years rather than a year.
I see.
Because it just waits for you to do and get back onto the best path that is provided for you.
I see. And what are some misconceptions that people may have about tarot? I know that, people think it's fortune telling. Mm-hmm. I'm sure people think it's a hoax. Mm-hmm. What are some misconceptions about it?
I think that people have a misconception about how readings go.
Okay.
Sometimes it's fortune telly. I've been very fortune telly sometimes.
I see.
A majority of the time, though, it's more so about where you are right now and where you want to be. And how am I able to help you, give you information and insight on how you want to get from point A to point B. So I think that people are expecting me to tell them that they are going to have a windfall of $1,000 come into their life in this specific time, and they're not going to have to do anything about it. But more so I think one of the questions that you had sent me was, will I get 1 million views next week?
Yeah.
I would be like, absolutely, you can get 1 million views, but this, and this is what you need to do to get 1 million views.
See.
It's not that it's going to happen next week for you and it's just easy peasy, one and done. It's more so like, okay, you want to get 1 million views. Great. What are you doing to get it? Are you putting yourself out there? Are you handing out flyers? Are you putting your social media out there? Are you doing this, and this? That helps you get that,
Yeah, of course.
I think people think that tarot reading or just readings in general, because there are a million ways to divine information, is more so that you don't have to do anything as the client. In fact, most of the time, I give people so much to do because they're your problems. I can't do anything about your problems.
Yeah.
This is how you fix your problems. And I'm giving you the tools and information that you need to fix your problems. And whether you want to fix it is not on me. So how you go about that really, really depends on what you do with it afterwards.
Of course. What would you say to skeptics that just think you're just reading off of cards and just making things up?
Get a reading. The only thing I could, and I think that skeptics are a great thing. I myself have read quite a few skeptics.
Yep.
I think, though, that the only way that you are going to, I guess, relieve yourself of that skepticism is just to get a reading. Pay somebody to get a reading. Do your research to find a reader, because if you're like, I just want to go get a reading, and you go to a random store and you're like, well, that didn't connect with me at all. Well, you're not giving yourself enough opportunity to go to a good reader, because I think that now that this tarot reading, divination, all this stuff is very new age and very in the moment, people like to do it. So everybody has a pack of tarot cards now,
Yeah.
You'd have to weed out which readers to go to, because someone reading from the little white book that comes in the pack of tarot cards is not a tarot reader.
Gotcha.
It
doesn't come with just a manual.
It does. It has those prescribed meanings of the cards, but if I throw the cards out and I'm like, okay, and I can't confidently tell you what they say, and I'm like, let me refer back to the little book here.
I see.
That you are not getting a tarot reading, in my opinion.
Okay.
So you have to go to somebody who is established, someone who has great reviews, somebody who has been doing this for a significantly long time, if you want to attain a great reading that is going to make your skepticism seem a little off-putting.
All right. And I know you challenged some of the skeptics to get a reading.
Absolutely.
Where can someone find someone like you? Where can the skeptics get the reading?
You can find me on Instagram. It's The Spirit's Voice. That's the best way to contact me. I charge $30 for a reading. I keep it low priced just because I think everybody deserves to get a reading. People would be like, it's $100 for an hour, $120 for an hour.
Okay.
And that's a very typical industry standard. The store I worked for charged $25 for every 15 minutes. Industry standard. But I charge $30 because I think everybody can benefit from a reading.
Okay.
I think everybody can. So come get a reading. I will absolutely read your cards for you 100%.
Of course. And is there ever been an opportunity where, or not an opportunity, but has there ever been the chance where you would get the same reading consistently at the same time and there's just no way to change the path that was put in front of a client?
I think something that spiritual workers do, very typical of us to do, is to get a few readings about a situation, because where we meet all at that same information is really where the kernel of truth is. Because my preconceived notions and perspectives on the situation comes from how I read my cards. How someone else comes at your perspective based on how they read will come from them. So I think that by getting multiple readings, you're able to ascertain which is the best way for you to go. So I highly recommend, if I'm telling you something crazy that you need to do, go get another reading from somebody else to confirm what I've told you.
I see.
Because I think that is where you're going to feel confident in what your readers are telling you. I mean, I got a reading today, actually.
Okay.
I got a reading today.
Let's hear about it.
It was wonderful. It confirmed everything I needed it to. And I'll tell you, come to your reader with specific questions, or at least realms of questions. So like, don't tell us, oh my gosh, Joe Schmo is really abusing me right now because of this, 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 and this, and this, because your reader is not going to be able to, I guess, provide with you the legitimacy of who that reader is if you're telling them all of the information from the get-go. Say, hey, I have a question about my love life. Your reader will pull the cards, and then they're going to say, I see that Joe Schmo kind of abuses you. And then that's when you're like, oh my gosh, that person is legitimate. Okay.
So what you're saying is like, don't come with specific questions, just make it broad so that way they can guide you towards where you need to go.
Yes, because there are the cards that I read have 78 cards in the deck. Those cards are only a certain number of different combinations that can be applied. So if you tell me I want to know about my love life, that allows me to focus in on how these cards are arranged based on love life. If you say, which is very typical, I call them general readings. If you're like, I don't know what I want to know, just tell me what I need to know.
I see.
And I tell you what I am hearing as what you need to know. You may not like what I have to say. That may not be what you wanted this reading about. That is about what is affecting you now that you need to work on now. So if you come to your reader with realms of questions, love life, finances, health, whatever it is, that allows the reader to focus in on that particular area of what you need to know about, or what you want to know about, because I want you to get your money's worth. I don't want you to fork up $30 for a reading and then me not answer the questions that you came to me for.
Do you think there's certain scammers in the tarot community that do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I'm saying you need to vet your readers. You need to look at their confirmations. Who is saying that they do great readings? Go to people that have big names. There are people out there that do schedule pretty far out, but if you want a quality reading that is worth your money, you will need to find somebody who has reviews, somebody who has a big name, a big following.
Of course.
And find them that way. But also at the same time, good readers probably are going to be in the harder to find. Yeah. Because we're based off of word of mouth. Good readers really don't have websites, or at least accessible readers.
Of course.
Because if they have websites, if they have all this stuff, like, for example, what is her name? Teresa Caputo. Okay. She's a medium. If you want to get a reading from her, great. You have to wait 3 years.
Oh, no.
You have to wait 3 years.
By that time, it's already wrapped, right?
Yeah. So try a few different readers. Go and try it. But there are scammers out there, so I don't want to be like, everybody tells you all the good things. No, there are people that are going to scam you. So pay attention to their price, too. If they're like, I will read you for $250 an hour, well, you have got to provide me with your accreditation.
Yeah.
Why do you charge that? How long have you been doing it?
Of course.
But if someone's like, hey, I'll charge whatever I charge and you're going to get a fantastic reading, go try it. Go try it. And if you end up wasting your money, well, then now you know who not to look for. And then you can find somebody else.
Of course. And is tarot cards part of witchcraft?
Yes and no. Yes and no. So you can be a tarot reader and you can be a psychic without being a witch.
I see.
I think being a witch would require you to develop psychic faculties because how we work is in an unseen world. So I can't technically see them with my eyes, feel them and stuff, even though people do have experiences like that, So you can be a psychic without being a witch, but to be a witch, you should have psychic abilities.
I see. So let's dive right into that.
Yes.
It's a field that I'm a little unfamiliar about.
Absolutely.
So witchcraft, where do I bring my broom and my hat to, and where do I meet you for that?
Honestly, a lot of witch work right now is done over social media type stuff.
Okay.
So connecting with people about, hey, this is the kind of work I want to do, this, and this. Are you able to provide this to me? Now, witch work is a little bit more intense than a reading.
Okay.
It will be more costly. So if you can't handle your situation mundanely and you're like, I desperately need this to be fixed, then you can go try and find a witch to help fix your situation.
I see. So it's like a step above, in essence.
So I do it all.
Okay.
So if I'm like, okay, your reading says that, oh my gosh, you need a cleansing.
Okay.
That my reading was $30. Your cleansing is this much. Do you want me to do it for you?
I see.
If you say yes, great, I will do it for you. If you say no, I want to find somebody else, I'll be like, you are absolutely more than welcome to find somebody else.
I see. And then I would say with witchcraft, what are differences between modern witchcraft and what everyone else thinks it is? Like I mentioned, the broomsticks. And
broomstick. So there is a broomstick. There is a broomstick.
I see. What is that about?
It's called a besom.
Okay.
It's a traditional witch's tool, and it's found across cultures. It's not necessarily used to fly on, but it's good for cleansing the house, for wiping things from the back of the house to the front of the house, so old stagnant energy can move out. Now, funny enough, it is used to fly per se.
See?
So it is used to fly, but traditionally how it was done is that witches back in the day would use psychotropic herbs.
Okay.
So like belladonna, mandrake root, those, and a few other things. So this is where you're getting the idea that witches cook babies, because this oil has to be rendered in a fat, because it's a salve that's rubbed on under armpits, on your feet. The reason that it said that witches fly on brooms is because the besom, the broomstick, represents a phallus, the male genitalia.
Oh, okay.
And the broom would be rubbed with those psychotropic herbs, those oils, and it would be inserted into the body of the witch. Those psychotropic herbs would encourage your spirit to fly out of your body and go wherever you need to go to. So you're not technically flying above the sky on a broomstick, but you are inducing yourself into a psychic experience by utilizing plant spirits, which have been used, again, cross cultures, that help loosen the spirit out of the body.
I would say, okay.
So that's where the idea that witches fly on brooms. There you go.
That is interesting. Why do witches get such a bad rap when it comes to certain religions? They view them as heretics.
So I think that it boils down to the fact that witchcraft is about personal power. So you had mentioned in one of your questions about why would someone come to you for a health reading? Well, how expensive is it to go to a doctor in comparison to how expensive it is to go to your local tarot reader? Yep. So witchcraft was used traditionally as a way to fight against overarching powers. So lay people wouldn't have a say with kings and queens because they would be listening to their advisors. So how do we fight back against power-hungry people if we have no power? So I think the reason that, and this is my personal opinion, of course. I think the reason that people are so afraid of witchcraft is because it is about developing personal power, and about how I can't go to a deity of some kind, because witchcraft isn't a religion, it's a practice. So you don't have to follow a god or goddess or whoever, you know. So how do I fight against these overarching powers that I can't even have a conversation with? Well, you can use witchcraft. You can use witchcraft.
And what's the form of witchcraft that you practice? I'm sure there's different forms.
Traditional European witchcraft is what I practice. I come from a lineage of African traditional religion. It's called Espiritismo. That's a Puerto Rican white table magic. And my godmother, who taught me, who's my mentor, is a Yaya Nganga. That's a high priestess of Palomayombe. That's a West African traditional religion. So I was brought up, and I'm so thankful to be brought up in a practice that is person of color based.
Of course.
However, my ancestry is all white people. All white people. So while my foundations are in ancestral veneration, my personal practice is geared towards more European traditional folk magic.
Of course.
Yeah.
Is there, I know you mentioned about religion not being a religion.
Yeah.
Can you be religious and also practice witchcraft at the same time?
Absolutely. And that's actually a very intense conversation people are having right now about, like, can you be a Christian and a witch? Can you be Jewish and a witch? Absolutely, you can. Now, they have their own forms of mysticism. So Jewish magic is called Kabbalah.
Okay.
They probably wouldn't necessarily have called themselves a witch. Even traditional practitioners of European magic, most recently, like typically around like the 16th century, would have called themselves cunning folk or gifted or touched. They wouldn't have used the term witch, because the term witch was applied to people that casted malicious magic, that stole milk, that blasted crops so they wouldn't grow, that brought storms and floods. You know, they did bad stuff. So I think that's another reason why people are now in a modern time adopting the word witch, because it is a word that was based in oppression. But I also think that by using the term witch, you are taking upon yourself the degradation that comes with it, and how people would look at you based off of what their preconceived notion is.
Okay, I see. Okay, and then what would you say to individuals that believe in voodoo? I know that that's something I'm going to ask you about. Voodoo, I have vague information about it.
Yeah.
What is it, and what would you say to them?
So I can't speak on African traditional religions that I'm not initiated into. They are culturally based practices, so I would highly recommend you, if you are interested in African traditional religion specifically. Now, African traditional religious practitioners typically are not the ones at the forefront of the community you know, so you will have to find them. I think that where people are like, you practice voodoo, well, voodoo is a very beautiful and vast religion. It is an incredible religion.
So it's a religion, not... Okay.
So voodoo is a religion.
Okay.
I guess you can practice. It's not necessarily called magic, but what they do is religious ceremony.
I see. Okay.
So how people in the West consider, they're like, oh, you do voodoo. No.
Yeah.
I'm a witch. I do witchcraft. I'm not initiated in voodoo. I do not practice voodoo. I don't have any lineage to that tradition. So when people do say, like, oh, you use voodoo dolls. Well, no. Voodoo dolls are poppet dolls, which came from Europe. So what people typically view as voodoo dolls are actually a European tradition.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, African traditional people do use dolls and do use things like that, but what you are envisioning in your mind right now is what is considered a voodoo doll is typically European. Oh. And we're not actually used to cause harm. So the pins in the dolls would be used to locate negative things in the body. So this is traditional healing, traditional medicine.
Oh.
So it would be and this is what I'm saying based off what I know.
Of course.
The pin goes into the doll, and that is where your ailment lies. The needle in the doll represents who you are in the ailment, and then the needle is taken out when that part of the body has been healed.
I see. So the misconception would be like, because you mentioned that it's a part of the body that is hurting, so with them seeing that, they would think that you're causing the harm.
You're causing harm rather than pinpointing the area that is being afflicted by malicious magic. Could be a sickness, illness, whatever, you know. So it's a traditional form of healing, but what we have as recorded and what the West views as voodoo was recorded by Christian missionaries.
Of course.
So they're seeing things like animal sacrifice, which is a very very important aspect of African traditional religions that we demonize in the West because we're like evil, bad. It's not. There is so much more that goes into traditional practices like that Western people don't want to look at or recognize because we immediately want to say it's demonic, you know?
Yeah.
So we have to realize that a majority of what we view to be negative, evil is oftentimes African, but is also oftentimes being fed through a lens of a Christian gnosis. If that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Is there still persecution in the West for witches, even in modern times?
Not probably what we thought it was. I think now that witchcraft, spirituality is becoming a fad, you know, I think that people aren't looking at it in such a negative light, but I think that people that do, in my opinion, real witch work that are actual practitioners tend to get some flack. Just based off of how they do it, how they work, you know? So I don't think that necessarily what we're considering to be persecution now in the West, like in the Americas. Now, there are places like in Africa, there are places in the East that are very adamant and against witches. And there are people that have been like ousted, have been banished, have been killed based off of how they practice.
I see.
But what in the West and what we consider in America, there has not been any type of like real group of people coming to stake and burn people, you know, like that's just not how we experience it anymore.
I know that you mentioned a fad of some sort. I have noticed personally like a bunch of, I don't know what those are called. They're the pentagon things.
Pentagram.
A pentagram, sorry.
Pentagram. I'm wearing one actually.
Oh, sweet.
There you go.
There it is for the video.
For the video.
Of course. Pentagram. I've noticed a fad of individuals wearing shirts like that. Is it one of those trends that people are just seeing on TikTok and just hopping on board, or is it how you identify yourselves?
I think it's a bit of both. I think that what we're experiencing in America is a wanting to separate themselves from Abrahamic traditional religions like Christianity, like Judaism, like Islam.
Okay.
Because they don't like what we would consider in the West to be oppressive, you know? So they are trying to separate themselves from it. So I think people wear the pentagram as either a way to resist what is the norm, you know, like goth people have been wearing the pentagram, upside down crosses, 666, you know, and they're not Satanist, but they do it as a way to resist what is the typical social norm.
Yeah.
So I wear a pentacle because it's what I practice, and it's because it's an identifier for me. I really can't say why other people wear it, you know, but I think it is becoming a fad right now because they're like, oh, okay, this is something that I can do that's not religious based. And we're trying to, and a lot of people that come to witchcraft, that come to paganism, which are not the same thing, they are coming from a space of religious trauma from what they have experienced in a traditional church setting.
Of course. Those crystal things, if I may ask about that, is that witchcraft? Where does that fall? Where does that come from?
I honestly am not a crystal hoe. I don't know, you know. I prefer personally to work with like stones, like rocks, that river rocks, or rocks that are found in Arizona, you know, things that are natural based. Also because crystals are typically mined from out of country. So if you buy a crystal from Tanzania, there might be slave labor involved with that crystal that was mined in Tanzania.
The blood diamond thing?
Yes. And then over here, you're paying a ridiculous amount of money, $70 for a crystal, when someone is doing it at the cost of their life, you know? So I think that when it comes to buying products, spiritual products, we have to be very mindful of how we're getting them and how they're coming to us. Also because I think it's like the West wants to commodify everything. You can practice the craft without going to a store.
I see.
You can be bioregional, find the herbs that are local to your area. I go to the Dollar Tree to buy my candles.
I see.
I go to the Dollar Tree. I am very adamant about going to the Dollar Tree.
Okay.
Because they have great stuff there, you know, but it doesn't have to be about money. But I think the fad and what we're seeing on TikTok, on social media, is I have to buy the most beautiful things, you know, to do this. No, you don't have to buy the most beautiful things or spend an ungodly amount of money. But I think that money is a part of this practice. A majority of my money does go to my practice, but it's because that's just what I enjoy. Like, people spend thousands of dollars on their car and they don't really need to update anything on their car, but they want to spend their money on that. So I spend my money where I spend it.
Of course.
There you go.
And as being a witch, practicing tarot, what are your views on the afterlife? I know that you mentioned it's a separation of the Abrahamic religion as well. So, and it's not a religion. I know that now.
Yeah, you're fine. It's really interesting, and I think that something that is important for people to know is that your ideas can change. They can shift. They can move. Your beliefs and things are never stagnant. So allow yourself to self-analyze, self-actualize. Is this what I still believe? Why do I still believe it? Because that's when you're going to get a very firm foundation in what you believe in. My personal understanding of the afterlife is that we all go to the same place. We all go to the same place. So when you die, your spirit is going to be at the place of your death. And so you're the person that you would have recognized the most in your life, or the soul. So it could be your grandma, your grandpa, your auntie, your great-great-grandpa, who you had such a loving connection with, is going to meet you on the other side. And they're going to be like, okay, it's time to go. And you're going to be like, what? And you're like, it's time to go. And so you will either A, go with them to the afterlife, or you are going to stay. And that is free will. So that's where we see earthbound spirits, because they don't want to go to the other side.
I see.
Because you retain your consciousness. So when you go to the other side, you get to, very typical, and this is a very typical belief for people, is that you meet the people that you loved in life. So obviously you're going to meet grandma, grandpa, auntie, cousin, whatever. You're going to mingle, you're going to hang around, and they're going to be like, okay, we're going to go review your life. Because you are a soul who comes in, because I believe in reincarnation, who goes to the other side to be like, this is what you've learned. And you're going to view your life from the eyes of other people. Oh. And you're going to just ruminate on that. And they're going to be like, okay, you can go. And you're like, okay, I'll go. And then you just hang around in the spirit world for an indeterminate amount of time. Some people have specific amounts of time. There is no time in the other world. It just is. At some point, they're going to be like, all right, it's time to go back. And you're like, okay. And so you'll go to your spirit council. They're the ones that have like a particular interest in your spiritual growth. And they're going to be like, okay, so what do you want to do in this next life? And you're going to be like, well, I didn't learn this, so I want to learn this now. And I need to do this, and I need to do this, and I need to do this. And you're going to agree to everything that is you're going to happen in this life. And you're going to be like, okay, it's time to pick a body. And you'll be like, I want that one. And you'll get like a few, I guess. And then they'll be like, okay, it's time to go back. And then you are going to reincarnate at the moment of your birth.
And why is it that we can't remember that part?
It's because you can't understand what is over there. So like, we can't, they don't have names. They don't have faces. It's all based off of energy, so they are high, intense feelings and emotions. Also because if you remembered everything over there, you wouldn't want to live here. If you're over there, you are unbounded by time, by space. You can go anywhere, do anything you want.
I see.
You can, but you also don't get to experience sex, drinking, drugs, all the things that being human, the human experience, and what we enjoy, So that's why if you're kind of, upset with your human life, if you remembered everything on the other side, you'd be like, I'm just going to come back, so I'm going to go off and I'm going to do it and just live in the other world now, And we don't need you to do that. We want you to live through your life so you can learn, so that you can grow, so that you can develop, so that when you go over again, when you get to be on the other side, you're like, wow, I have lived my life to the fullest. And then you get to come back and learn new things.
I see. There's also, if I remember, certain movies, movies, I'm going to refer to that, of spirits being stuck and needing guidance to the other side. Is that something that you can help with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that even humans, people are too scared of what happens on the other side. So I think that and it could be for a majority of reasons why they want to stay. On the other side, you don't get to drink and smoke. If you are an alcoholic, you're like, I want to stay in a place where I can at least try and experience that. Yeah. They are spirits that are too attached to the human experience that they don't want to move on. But again, there are a variety of reasons why that happens, typically. So I was thinking about like insane asylums. They're like, they're so crazy haunted, blah, blah, blah. Well, they probably are haunted and I consider anything that has a spirit inhabitant haunted.
Okay.
Regardless of how positive or negative it is. Your house could be haunted and you have a grandma's spirit who just wants to hang around and cook cookies.
Of course. That'd be a wonderful spirit.
That'd be a great spirit to have in the house.
Yes, of course.
But the reason they stay is because there is so much trauma. There is so much negativity. So that's why when even people that aren't connected to the other side and they enter a place and they're like, "Ooh, I've got the heebie-jeebies here," it's because you are feeling the amount of what's happened there. So going to places like Auschwitz, you're going to feel really like low and down because not only do you knowingly know what happened there, but you're feeling it. And so that type of energy oftentimes sticks and doesn't allow people to move on because they don't know anything else other than that.
I see.
So if you go to an insane asylum and you're like, "Oh my God, it's probably so haunted." Well, it probably is haunted because those people there were treated horribly. And they can't move on because they've only experienced trauma. They don't know what else is out there. And so they're stuck.
Of course. And my very final thing that I have for you is, where can we find you? And is there anything else you'd like to say?
You can find me on the Spirit's Voice on Instagram. If you want a reading, consultation for spiritual work, let me know. I will do whatever you need me to do. Now, I do think that boundaries are important. So if I don't get back to you, please give me at least 24 hours to respond, just because I also have a day job outside of my spiritual work. And I think if you are feeling something that goes bump in the night, wait and see what happens. Don't automatically assume that everything is a spiritual, scary ghost. See if there's mundane problems. Because I myself, I'm like, "Oh my God, what was that bump?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's my water heater." Okay, So allow things to have mortal problems. But if you're coming up on something that's super spiritual, allow yourself to experience it. I think that sometimes what happens is with people is that they want to immediately refuse and revoke something because they're like, "I don't know how to handle that." Well, you're allow yourself to open up to an experience of something that you haven't yet. You can't control it. Absolutely not. That's why you pull in a specialist to figure out what's going on. But if you're having things go bump in the night, if you're seeing things, smelling things, getting things that you are like, "Oh my God, I don't know where this comes from," don't fear it. And I'm not saying open up and invite it into you, but what I am saying is that allow yourself to experience something that is outside of yourself. Because I think that sometimes people are so scared of what is out there that they're like, "I don't want to know anything." Well, you get to know some things. So allow yourself to open up to whatever else is out there, because there is so much more out there that we do not currently see. And you are not, I myself don't see sometimes. So everyone has psychic gifts. Everyone has a spiritual connection to their ancestors. You don't have to be a witch to have and reap the rewards of connecting with your ancestors as well. So if you want help, ask them for help. If you want to get to contact them and know them, light a little white candle by your bed, have a cup of water, and say, "Hello, ancestors." If you have a particular one, Grandpa, "I really need some help right now, Grandpa. If you could really help me out, I would really appreciate it. Come to me in a way that I can understand." You will have a dream, and Grandpa will tell you what's going on.
Absolutely. And I would like to thank you so much for coming on. You can find him on Instagram at _spirits_voice. And he also features regularly at a podcast called Hoof and Horn. You can find that at Apple Podcasts as well. I'd like to thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.